like I consider myself a Christian. I mean, I've converted to Christianity. It's just you know, um, uh, it's going, I suppose, beyond that, in specificity that I'm sort of reluctant to do. I mean, I have more or less, I suppose, um, developed or I have a set of doctrines or principles that I'm more or less sure about, but I'm not familiar enough with the um, different demo, denomination.
Denominations.
Yes, thank you. To sort of make that leap yet.
So in essence, you've converted, but you haven't found a church home yet.
Yeah, I mean, I have belonged to a church community. I've started studying now a couple of months ago, so I'm no longer a participant in that. But you know, here in Norway, we don't necessarily have too many communities to choose between. So it was I sort of made a compromise in order to get the, I don't know, communal aspect of Christianity, and sort of putting aside my potential disagreements with said community for the time being. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of this community and like what we're doing and trying to build is we even have a separate Bible study server now. So it's to me it's pretty fantastic that we can all come together and try to figure this thing out.
It's interesting how you can have you can pretty much curate what you want, and you can be technically in a bubble and then be outside of the bubble at the same time. So you're still exposed to other ideas, even if you only go to the pages that you want to go to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because you're going to wind up with people like Job and um, we've had some. They're probably still lurking, but we have some atheists running around. You know, Joey's the probably most prominent one. Um, so you can go over to the alternate server and you can have Bible study, and I love doing that. I do that on Saturdays, and we just started one midweek for Exodus. So I really enjoy doing that too. But then you get back into the main part of the server, and it's just like anything goes in there. So you don't get to be sheltered in a little bubble as far as that goes.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the Bible study stuff because I don't get a lot of that here. Is that on this channel or the Bridges of Meaning channel?
No, that's a completely separate server, and if you'll give me a second here, I'll actually get an invite from there.
Oh, thank you.
If I can.
It's like a bubble with holes in it.
No, that's not.
Kind of defeats the purpose of a bubble.
That's a bubble that you can go into and then jump back out of. It's weird.
Oh, it's like when you're in a bubble bath and you have one of those big ones and you're all covered in soap, so you can just go right through it.
Right? Okay.
Well, the problem with bubbles is normally not that you get stuck in it. It's that different rules apply inside the bubble and outside of it, and you end up not being able to eventually communicating with people outside the bubble.
Alright, so I dropped that in there in the voice channel chat for people that might not be in that Bible study that might want to join it. It's Saturdays we're still in the Gospel of John, and then Wednesdays we're doing Exodus.
Is that in anticipation of the biblical series?
Uh, Not really sure. That was Andrew L. You guys know him. He's just interested in Exodus and wanted to do a midweek Bible study on Exodus. He's a cradle Catholic, so probably, like he said, he hasn't actually even read the text of Exodus. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, just saying he's not ever read through it. So he wanted to and do a Bible study on it, and everybody agreed that would probably be a good thing.
Yeah, I was wanting to read up on that last night, so it's interesting the parallel.
Nope, we lost him.
We
Yeah.
lost who?
Tom? Oh, there he is. Yeah, it's definitely let's just say an interesting book.
KG guy, I don't think I heard you introduce yourself before. Would you mind telling me just where you're from and what your interests are?
Oh yeah, I've been involved in this off and on, but I just popped in because I was late. I'm from Arizona, technically from California, so I feel like a bit of a refugee from there. But the server kind of attracted me through Vanderklay's chat with a guy called Voth, and because I was interested in his writing, and so I got involved with the writers group, and then got involved in the larger discussion and met Charlie through Voth, and that's kind of why I'm here. My major pull was from Peterson to Vanderklay, and then through Voth and writing into a server up that about society and religion. So.
Right. Are you religious yourself? Or you're just generally curious?
Yeah, I'm. My dad's a pastor.
Oh right, yeah.
So.
Yeah, which tradition do you come from? I'm genuinely curious because that's never came up as a topic.
Oh, it hasn't?
No.
Oh, I thought it's Pentecostal. Church. It's the Church of God in. Dad, where's the Church of God? It skipped my mind. He's not available. But there's two denominations in the U.S. called the Church of God, maybe three. Cleveland, Tennessee. There it is. Yeah, the Church of God in Cleveland, Tennessee. It's there's one of them is is a black church, and they're completely unrelated to us. But our denomination is a branch off of, I guess you would call, Methodists.
Uh-huh.
All right.
So I was looking into like the history behind our denomination, and it went back to what was his name? John Wesley, the Methodist movement, and so that also goes back, and that's towards Anglicanism, and they have a lot of Arminius, so it's we're Arminian, Wesleyan, Pentecostals.
All right.
Gotcha, but not oneness Pentecostals, because there is a difference.
Yeah. I don't even know what that means.
Well, technically, they're sort of dualist. They have the whole, you receive the Holy Spirit just like the disciples did, but there's they're not technically monotheistic to the point where Jesus didn't exist. Just that Jesus was an extension of God, if that makes any sense. Like it's
semi-Unitarians?
Yeah, semi-Unitarians, but not like a Sam Adams Unitarian.
That's a weird thing to hold in my head. It's like I'm used to. Wesley is really good at yes and. So like it's easy to hold two things in your head, but that's a really interesting one to try to hold.
Yeah, because they call themselves oneness Pentecostals, but they're actually dualist. It's weird. I have an aunt who is part of that camp, and it's just like, you know what, we agree on like 99% of stuff, so I'm willing to let that 1% just go.
Yeah. At the end of the day, when I approach somebody from a different denomination, I just ask them, it's like, okay, do you believe Jesus died for you? Yeah. Okay, you're good. I've really got nothing to argue with you about.
Exactly.
Then you get the Jordan Peterson crowd going, what do you mean by died? And what do you mean by for? And what do you mean by me?
Yeah. Yeah, there you can have a really interesting conversation. So, just if you can nail down those three words, I think I think you could solve a lot of arguments.
Not enough arguments to make the Lutherans like the Catholics, though.
Well, I think there was 99 of them. I think you should just go down the list. Like, okay, where are our sticking points? And let's hammer this out.
You know, funny thing is, with the Catholics, I've learned that the Catholics dislike the Catholics a hell of a lot more than the Lutherans dislike the Catholics.
This is very true. This is very true. Because they look at places like California on that map that Sam Adams shared and goes, now what? They say they're mostly Catholic? Like, show me a Catholic on the coast of California.
You know, we actually do have a term in Icelandic which is used when somebody's acting like very pure, very dogmatic, and like very much for their camp, and the saying translates to he's more Catholic than the Pope. And I met a lot of Catholics which are more Catholic than the Pope.
I think most are more Catholic than the Pope.
I was not going to go there.
knowing this Pope, there's a lot of them.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So the important question maybe is, are they more Christian than the Pope?
Well, I guess that depends on what you mean by Christian. In a religious sense, he might be more because, religion is tradition, really. But in a relationship sense, I don't know. It depends on their prayer life, I guess.
Are they acting as if?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the propaganda's been like where you are, but it's been really positive towards him in the UK, and the whole fact that he, went and actually cancelled his own, had generally, gone and lived somewhere else other than the major papal apartments, really impressed people. And if Jesus says, you fed me and you did this and you did that, and that sort of like, judgment of Christianity on that level, then Francis scores highly.
Well, I think he left there because they were having drug scandals. But anyway, the oh shoot, I had a. Oh yeah, that's really odd. That like, where are you?
UK.
You're in. Okay.
So
yeah.
we are. It's one of those places where we are definitely Protestant, but we have a very sort of large interaction with the Pope because of the Irish Catholic population and the general Catholic population now as well. So we get a lot on the news.
Papists.
It's interesting. The last major anti-papist riots in this country were in the 1780s, and the guy who led them then went off and became an Orthodox Jew. So there we go.
What the heck?
Yeah, Lord George Gordon. It's worth reading up on Wikipedia about him.
That is weird.
So, yeah,
Generally,
450 people killed.
Generally, when the Pope speaks, unless he's speaking on biblical matters, I really don't care what he has to say. Like, in my opinion, anything that he says that is outside of the text is just his opinion, and I just don't listen to it. Which, I mean, I'm not Catholic in the first place, but what he says actually makes a difference in more than just his tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So when he goes outside the text, I just go, yeah, okay, whatever. That's just like your opinion, dude.
Is this about the fact that he approves of or thinks that civil unions are okay?
Yeah, I mean, when he comes out and says that, it's like, what do you really mean? Like, do you mean okay that the state should issue civil union documents just like we have a marriage certificate? Or are you saying that the churches should hold ceremonies for civil unions? Because if that's what you're saying, I'm going to be against it. If you're just saying,
I think
based on his writings, he would be referring to the previous. That civil unions should be issued mostly due for inheritance and responsibility rights, but not be conducted by the church.
well, then that's completely fine because the state already does things like that. Like, and I know that that fudges into the whole separation of church and state stuff, but really marriage is so much more than what the state tells you it is. Like they grant you some rights and they sign a certificate and it's like, okay, great, but marriage is way more than that. So if you're just talking states' rights, like yeah, okay, whatever. But if you're going to get into the church should hold ceremonies for that, that's where I'm like, okay, now you're crossing a line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting when they brought civil unions into the UK, and I'd got over the initial shock of it because I'd just come back from somewhere else. I thought to myself, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That if you're going to permit homosexuality, you've got to permit homosexual unions. Doesn't mean the church should, as you say, do anything about it. And I think that Pope Francis has just caught up, so to speak, on that level. But marriage, it was shocking that they allowed marriages in this country so easy and so quickly without thinking. And really without thinking. It was just done as a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, yeah,
Well,
because a lot of the politicians in England are even more susceptible to the media than the ones here. They immediately jump on the "is this gonna look good" thing.
Yeah.
And
well, I also think a lot of the discussions with gay marriage was a mistake from the beginning because the church reacted from a reactionary. Like they heard that and like, whoa. But the problem is, this wouldn't even be discussed if marriage, like what it actually means, hadn't been kind of lost on the general population.
Mm.
That this is like a vow that you are making and intend keep. Instead, like people start picturing like that pretty ceremony on the beach with the white flowers. Instead of actually talking about you're promising that you're going to take care of this woman until the day you die. And to the wife, you're going to listen and obey this man until the day you die.
Mm.
And why these relationships matter, like that wasn't what was really being discussed. They got stuck on the gay part instead of using the opportunity to talk about what marriage means and what it should strive to become.
well, yeah, it was over romanticized. It became an event instead of a thing, something you do every day.
Mm.
It's like, oh well, they got married. It's like, no, they are married. There's a difference.
Yeah, I just in the voice channel chat dropped the first video that I did on sex and marriage because I think Peter hits a point there where he's absolutely correct. It's the church didn't take the opportunity to say you as the state don't really understand what marriage is.
Yeah.
And so when you're going to make this overarching rule, it's marriage is way more than what you're saying it is. And so they didn't take that opportunity. And then they could have also made a statement of, okay, this is what the state is defining marriage as. This is what God defines marriage as. So if you want to repurpose that word and say that it's marriage, fine, but it's the wrong definition. And I think they could have went that route instead of the knee-jerk reactionary route that they went.
Well, what bugs me is that it went straight to the Supreme Court, and it skipped the argument. It didn't. It wasn't really thought over. It was. It was no it was no civil unions or yes marriage. There wasn't like it, it's really weird how in the Supreme Court it went straight to yes marriage, even though at the time the Democrats were saying yes to civil unions. Like they they just went yes marriage. It's just like, what? No, guys.
But surely
We were
that's the
having
nature of the civil. That's the nature of the Supreme Court. It cannot actually create a situation. It can only approve or disapprove something that is being argued in front of it. And I think that to get the more nuanced thing, you actually have to put it through Congress. And
Yeah.
Congress is incapable of doing that. And that's why the Supreme Court in the US has taken on such a massive role, because actually Congress is logged jammed the whole time. It has been since effectively the 60s.
Well, the issue with Congress at that particular time was that that people had reacted to Obama's second term by putting in a whole bunch of Republicans to stop him from doing ridiculous things. And so he became a lame duck, and he couldn't do anything at that point. Weirdly, that's actually why the economy improved, because he couldn't do anything to the economy anymore.
Well, if you take a look at it, though, it actually would have passed both the House and the Senate. A civil union bill would have passed. They actually
Yeah.
were against him on that. Not in the least bit. It would have went straight through had they said, okay, this is going to be, this is our term. It's going to be civil union, and it's going to be in order to give these couples the same rights under the law that the other married couples have. Would have passed flying colors, no problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
Because
when I
they
hear
were
that
they
argument,
they
I'm
had
just
read
like,
up on it at that point. It had been a really long argument because they had been going over it since Bush.
right. And if you look at what happened in California at the time, full Democratic state, like the entirety of the legislature, Proposition 8. Look it up. They were against same sex marriage. They were fine with the civil union part, but even they said, hold on, we don't want to throw this word marriage in there because that's just going to fudge things too much.
Yeah. But I think it went straight. It went straight for marriage, not only because the Supreme Court was the one that I ended up ruling on it, and they're very one or the other, but the I think it was Dave Rubin that went over this. He said, looking back on it, that fight had nothing to do with civil unions. It was everything about taking the word marriage.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it had
And
to do with.
yeah, and so it's just like, and now we've got a whole lot of mainstream Republicans saying, can we just say civil unions instead? Republicans, they got the Republicans on board with that.
Yeah,
It's just like,
it can't be done anymore. But the reason they took it to the Supreme Court is because the Supreme Court has no power in granting positive rights. So it can't say it can't grant civil unions. But what it can do is say the law pertaining to marriage, as the way it sits, is unconstitutional in the way that the state defines marriage. So we have to rule that these marriages are also acceptable because of how the law is currently written.
so anyway, I showed up late. What was the initial discussion before I popped in?
Nothing. We had no topic going in today. It was just whatever everyone wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They
it's
didn't send
interesting
us on a
that
detour.
the people that the way that we protest today, the way that if you are an activist, that if you want to get something done and achieved, that seems contrary to the core civilization values, but not against sort of the more advanced. What it's not the wrong term for it. Values is to actually jump straight to the courts rather than trying to get through the legislature. That you can't actually, the gradualist approach isn't what they want. They want to actually take the ground straight away, and that's what they were able to achieve because of the general feeling in society. I mean, it's amazing when you think that 40, 50 years ago, being gay was something despised, and I don't know when I don't know if it was ever illegal in the States, but in the UK it only became legal in 1967. And certainly the feeling in the UK wasn't, we were never as anti in the way that I felt. American men that I've met have been very sort of nervous about even being thought of as being gay, Christian men especially. Whereas in the UK we always had this sort of, we had a large element of people who were camp, is probably the way we would describe them. And all through my childhood, there were men on TV who definitely weren't masculine by any means at all. And, were lisping and moving their hands in strange ways and all this sort of stuff. Had a very good boss who was exactly that way, inclined, and yet was married with 2 children and didn't have a gay thought in his head. In that sense, so I think we had much less problem with it. I think it's just been surprising to see it move into the mainstream and become normative to have a gay son or daughter, and people not to blink an eyelid. Yeah, it's been very strange to see over a shortish period.
Well,
How
we
old?
I don't
How
know
old
about
are
not
you?
blinking an eyelid, but we've blinked a lot because my sister is in that camp, and it's caused a problem because Dad's a pastor. So it it that we still have discussions, and it's very strange because she's also gone into the Democratic stuff and believing the media and all that, and it's painful to watch because I'm just like it's like there's so many, you're being told so many lies and believing all of them, and it's really weird. And like we can't even have discussions anymore. Like, and I've I've always been able to talk to her. It's kind of painful. Uh,
Yeah,
what the media can do to people. It's just like I can't even have a discussion with her anymore. It's our last interaction was a shouting match, and you know she hung up, and it's just like like, what do I do? Like, how do I talk to somebody that won't talk to me? So it's really it's mostly painful because like I've always told her, like, okay, I will always love you, you will always be my sister, and I will never hate you, that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Like, I can disagree with you and love you at the same time. And she can't seem to hold those two things in her head. It's like, if I don't agree with her on every point, I don't care about her at all. That's
No,
weird.
no holes
Well,
in our bubble.
that that that's actually more natural than you were are to expect. And if it was not you talking to her, you the conversation could actually move forward because every time you talk to family, all the expectations and all the willingness to make your close ones happy and like come with you. And if you're not in a very chaotic, like, if you're not in a very chaotic state, like, if you are in a chaotic state, those expectations come to the surface and kind of act like a catalyst which blows up the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. There's a whole lot of background information that she kept drawing on, and I was just like, I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about what's happening right now. And so yeah, you're right. There's a lot of external, you know, things. It's like, it's strange comparisons and bringing up things irrelevant to the conversation. She she had a really great. I had no idea how close she and my brother were, and they had a huge falling out. Uh, it was even stronger than ours, because like, and ours just happened recently. Theirs happened a while ago. They 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 fought, and he was just like, I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore. Like, this is not the person I grew up with. Like, she's completely changed. Everything about her is different. It's like, wow, okay, how does that happen? So I don't know. I don't know where the change happened, because I was completely oblivious to all this stuff, um, growing up, because I'm 8 and 10 years younger than those two. So I was, I don't know,
How old are
I,
your siblings, if you don't mind me asking?
let's see, I'm 28, so she's 38. He's 36.
Right.
So yeah, and yeah, I didn't understand what was going on for quite a while. It wasn't until I was like 16 or 17 that I even became kind of self-aware of what was even happening in my own uh proximity. Like, this is, because they weren't even in the house anymore. But I I said the other day to my parents, it's like, I don't think I was fully self-aware until I looked at the church, because we were in a struggling church at the time, and I looked at the church and said, where are the people going? What happened? And there was a schism in the church at the time, and I was completely oblivious to it. There was stuff happening in the background I wasn't aware of, and I was like, wait a second, is there always stuff in the background happening that I'm not aware of? And
Yes.
so like that's when reality kind of set in, and I was just like, whoa, what? How many other things am I missing right now? And that only expanded. So it was kind of nuts that it took like 16 or 17 years to gain self-awareness.
You know, the thing with, for example, the conversation regarding homosexuality, it doesn't make any sense unless you can, like, well articulate, like, what the relationship between the genders should be, and how, like, marriages and union between man and wife function, what is expected, all these nuances which we kind of just put aside in our very liberal mindset. So almost all our conversations start with all the assumptions in place, and you assume that the other person also knows what you are talking about.
Yeah,
And when people aren't sure, they start digging, and that's, as I would say in Icelandic, where the devil runs into you. Because you're uncomfortable with the conversation and you don't have all the background, you start looking into the possible presuppositions which brought up this conversation. At that point,
Total mom here.
because you're feeling uncomfortable, you go to the most negative thought that you can muster. And from those, you start hurling accusations. And that's where these conversations break down.
Yeah. Well, that was what I realized, and recently some of my other family members were arguing kind of like that, and uh, the very moment the one of them started yelling, and the very moment the other one started yelling, everything broke down. It would have been fine had the other not started yelling, but that was that was something I witnessed, and I was like, wait a second. All it takes is one person to be calm to have a conversation. That's weird.
Well, it takes one person to be aware,
Yeah.
because the explosive element is normally introduced 5 minutes before everything blows up. So, yeah, it takes a while to get there, but if a person is humble, they can actually look at the accusation and either answer yes or no and resume the conversation with the person, as long as the pride doesn't get in the way and the accusations don't come like forward. It's like the book of Job, where God and Satan speak, and where Satan, of course, started after God had said, "He's my greatest servant." Then followed, "Of course, he's your greatest servant. He has everything," and that's kind of the spirit that you get. It's prideful, it's greedy, it's not charitable. So as long as you can A, resist the confusion, B, resist the devil, you can take the conversation some. Kind of not worry about the accusation.
Mm.
Okay, so what did I miss?
Oh, wait, we did miss you. Okay, I was wondering. I was about to say, did we lose you, Charlie?
I put it out in the text part that I was going to mute my mic while I ate my sandwich.
Oh, okay. We were talking about when a conversation degenerates into an argument, and I had I had said what I had witnessed, like if one person starts yelling and the other person doesn't yell, the conversation can still go, but it's as soon as both of them start yelling, everything's gone. So I like, because I witnessed that in my own in my own conversations. It's just like, as long as I don't respond in that way, I can keep thinking. But the problem is that the ramp up to that moment brings a lot of adrenaline with it. And and he was saying, he was elaborating more on that.
Oh, I see. I would say it escalates into an argument every time Jacob and I talk to one another.
Who's
Only
Jacob?
because you blame Jacob.
Oh, you know, Jacob, the Judaizing Pharisee. Actually, he changed his
Oh,
name.
yeah.
We battle it out in the thunderstorm every once in a while.
He's trying to discredit Paul.
Yeah, among other things.
I think I recently saw something on Paul, and it was just like, I think I know what Jacob's problem is. It's because Paul kind of Paul's writings got the focus of Christianity away from Jewish tradition, and that irks him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that's probably his major problem there.
Yeah, because I keep hearing all this stuff on Paul, and I'm just like, I don't see the problem, but that's because I don't have a Jewish background.
Well, as Jacob would say it, he sees Christianity as an expression of Judaism. So anything that detracts from that, such as Paul, becomes a problem for him. And I keep wanting to, I keep trying to get through his head that it's like, you, you know, you can't sit on that fence. You can't hold on to that part that says this is my Judaism, and don't take it away from me, and yet claim the Christianity part. Like, you can't do that. It doesn't work that way. Like, he goes as far as to say it's like, yes, I believe that, the Gentiles don't live under the same covenant as the Jews do, but I really want to hold on to my Judaism and have this thing that you Gentiles have, and it's like, you just can't, Jacob. Like, you can't. That's the reason for Christ. Like, you can't have both.
Yeah, it's. I know where he's coming from, but it's also. I don't want to say cringy, but I can't. I don't have any other word for it. Um, the have you guys seen Paul's latest video?
Which one? Because he just dropped another one today.
Oh, okay. So with Job,
Yeah.
that was okay. So there's like an entire there's a whole series of Job's experience going through all of this stuff and talking to Paul on Paul's channel. And a little while back, before, because when I was doing the interviews with these guys, I like to prepare for an interview. So I was watching uh I was watching a few things to get ready to talk to Paul, and then I did that talk, and then joined the server, and so I was going to talk to Job. And so I watched Job's videos on Vanderclay, and his journey was insane then. You watch this latest one, and it's just like, who's that? That's not Job. Like there's a different man sitting there with the same mannerisms. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where like he's gone from I can't believe this stuff to I can't not believe this stuff. It's like what?
Well, and it's so interesting because we get a real life view into what we in the faith when we try to say there's plenty of people out there that are hurting and they're struggling with this. It's like that's your actual representation on your screen right in front of your face. You can see a man who's struggling through it. It's like you don't. Those glimpses are so rare because people always put on the good face, and here's someone not putting on that good face and just being brutally honest about the struggle.
Yeah.
And it's kind of I wouldn't say funny, but kind of ironic that people try to put on the face of I've never had doubts, I've never like had to like really struggle with my faith to any degree. And then you go into a church and listen to like the more modern sermons or the modern like songs. And normally they're all about like the struggles that you went through, like finding your way to God. Like if you take even the most sung one in English, it's Amazing Grace, which is literally about like the relief of finally like getting into the faith.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I can't hear you.
Oh, if you contrast like the kind of holier than thou attitudes you can often like see in churches and where they like where people are talking about like how they've always walked with God and there's never been a problem. And you contrast that with the songs that are sung in the churches. For example, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Like the confessions are in the songs are normally I'm not a good person.
Yeah. Yeah, someone brought up I can't remember where I think it was a pastor or something. It's like I have to watch the songs that I sing in church. It's just like can I say that next verse? That kind of thing. He's he's holding himself accountable to the hymns, and it's just like I see what you mean there. It's like, well, the on one hand, you've got people who look at the symbolism and are just like, this is participation, this is worshiping with other people, and on the other people, on the other side, it's just like, yes, this is also taking on the words of the song. So it's just like, how much of this do I mean?
Yeah, and I've brought this up before in one of my videos. I'm not sure which one, but have you guys ever seen like a painting of a shepherd carrying a lamb?
Over his
Yeah.
shoulders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know why that is?
No.
He broke its legs purposely because it strayed away.
Hmm.
And that was common
Yes.
practice. You would break their legs and then carry them over the backs of your shoulders. And it teaches, like, their legs will heal, but it teaches the sheep a lesson that you are the shepherd, you are to be obeyed, and if you stray outside of this and I have to come find you, there are consequences that you don't want. It's like, but you know, you never hear Christians praying to God, God, please break my legs.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, we don't want that now, do we?
I don't know. I kind of had that prayer last night. It was
Yeah,
in different words.
But it
you
was so
know,
typical, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was. It was. It's not. It wasn't a normal. It wasn't a normal conversation.
guys know the story, the footsteps in the sand.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now take that kind of picture to it, and
Oh, he's carrying me. Yeah, because he broke your legs.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
it's an
that's great.
important lesson, right? Because we think it's all
Yes.
lovey-dovey how you hear that, you know, oh, if there's one lost sheep, the shepherd will go out and he'll leave the rest of the flock and he'll go out and search for that one sheep. And then he breaks its legs and carries it back to teach it a lesson. And it's like,
That'd
yeah,
be that'd be a
we never really talk about that part.
that'd be a hilarious like picture because like you've got like this panorama shot of two sets of footprints and then one. It's like where it tapers off to one, there should be like a little spattering of blood or something. It's like, wait, what happened there?
but yeah, as a
Because it
shepherd, I
even
can
works
tell you.
symbolically because it's like the blood from the cross. Like you could just say that, but it's like on the other hand, you could just say, "Oh, that's where he broke my legs."
I've never had to break a sheep's leg, but I have had the unfortunate thing happen that the sheep has broken its leg by running away from me. And I can tell you, like, and that was not a lamb, it was a sheep. So it was around 50 kilo. And I had to carry that back to the farm down a mountain. But it never ran again. So yeah, having a having its legs broken and you having to carry it long distances makes it like realize, oh yeah, I'm supposed to trust that one.
Did it fall on a rock or did it just stumble?
It stumbled into a like small fissure where it like got its leg stuck and broke its leg trying to escape.
Oh, that's a very biblical image.
Yeah. Well, it didn't feel very biblical because the hills were so sheer I couldn't go straight down, so I had to take a circle around with the sheep on my back.
Oh, okay. So I have to ask you the Pharisee question. Was it Sunday?
Yes, it was a Sunday.
It was Sunday.
Well, obviously we have to stone you now, Peter, just so you
Well, I mean that's the perfect illustration. That's exactly what was brought up in that talk. Is like, do you go and get the lost sheep, or do you let it die because you're not supposed to be working too hard today?
Yeah. Well, that was part of the 600 plus extra laws that were added under, mainly under Second Temple Judaism, where all these extra laws were added. You could only live so far from the synagogue, because you're only allowed to take so many steps in a day to get to and from. Like all, yeah,
Yeah, it got into legalism.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, we have to take Peter outside the city gates now and stone him because he clearly worked on a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And yet, the priest always taught in synagogues on Sundays.
Yeah, it's just like, where do you guys get off?
Oh, I'm sure there was a provision in there for them.
Hmm. Oh.
So yeah, that's what Jesus was
There's,
railing against with them, telling them, calling them hypocrites. It's like, yeah, they kind of had that one coming.
yeah. A whole lot of provisions. Well, and then like I think it was I think one of the more embarrassing ones was, you tithe your herbs. It's just like you're you're getting down to the point where you're tithing tiny tiny bits of things, and it's just like, okay, but do you know why you're doing that? Like it's like to like are you doing it out of obedience, or are you doing it to feel better than everyone else?
Yeah.
I don't think it was out of obedience. I think it was just out of a legalistic framework. That's
Yeah.
why. That's why when I argued these things with Jacob, I'm like, do you really understand? Because I'm talking during Second Temple Judaism. I'm not talking post, as in what you're in now. I'm talking before the destruction of the Second Temple. And everything he wants to show me is like arguing this is like 200 and 300 years after the Second Temple was destroyed. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not. We're not talking the same thing here.
You're arguing uh the 100 Years War, and he's stuck in World War I.
Right? And that's
Like, different time frame, buddy.
yeah. And that's why when he brings up Paul, I'm like, how do you expect Paul to talk like he's a Jew when he has obviously transcended Judaism? It's like you can't make that argument. That doesn't make any sense anymore. You have to look at who he's writing to and what he's writing about to understand that no, he's not going to sound like a Jew.
Yeah. Well, he's not going to sound like a modern Jew, and he's also not going to sound like an ancient one.
Exactly.
He's going to sound like one of his time.
Which
Just,
would have
yeah,
been a at the time a Hellenized Jew who had converted to Christianity. So where he's at theology wise is all over the map, and it's not something you can pinpoint and say he's a Jew because he said X. It's like no, his theology is all over the map because this is a brand new thing that he's just converted to, and he's he's arguing, or his Jewish argument is going to be Second Temple Judaism, as he understands it. So it's like it's just a whole mixed bag that you get with him.
Another element which, like, I can kind of relate to Jacob on, it's often frustration with translation. Because back when it's like the frustration I deal with when somebody is trying to make arguments in Norse paganism. It doesn't happen all that often, but it has happened a few times with me. Then the frustration is often that you have both your cultural context and, for example, I go from Norse paganism and I go from the original Eddas, not translation. But translation requires you to move it all to a different cultural framework where people can actually understand you, understand why things are done the way they do things. So the language will always be mangled in translation. But you need to translate the message, not like the word itself.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Japanese translation stuff. If you translate the idea, people will actually understand what's going on. If you translate literally, it's gonna sound stupid.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a lot of situations where that comes up. It's just like people die if they are killed is an actual translation somebody wrote out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I don't
Uh,
think
uh,
we get to play that card right now because if you look at it, not only do we have the Septuagint, and not only do we have the Hebrew texts that have been preserved, but we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, which contains the entirety of the Old Testament. It's like, do we not realize that we can cross-reference all these together and say the NIV is a translation that stands because this was written after we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, so we could go back and look at them, and also have the Septuagint, and also the preserved Hebrew text, and be able to say, yes, this is the best translation that we have. It's like, are some things going to still get mistranslated? Sure. But is there a lot of them that are mistranslated? No.
Well, the thing is, you also need the word to be able to reach the person. That was what I was getting at.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
if, for example, I were to translate certain phrases from Icelandic to English, like directly, and by the way, these are closely related languages. Like I could have been if we had lived 1,000 years ago, I could have been speaking Old Norse to you, and you could have responded in Saxon to me, and we would have understood each other. But if I translate these certain phrases or certain terminology, it will come out as the opposite gesture. So, for example, I'm gonna take something kind of childish though. Um, when women are often like adoring how cute baby is in Icelandic, they use the phrase "Hún er svo mikið raskat," which literally means she's such an asshole.
Okay.
But of course, if I were to translate the meaning of it, would be, she's such an adorable little thing. So if you're just going to go on stringent definitions, you're not going to get anywhere in evangelization. And that is why Paul is as important as he is, because he brought the message, not the letter of the law, nor did he just translate it to his head. It was the translation of the heart which he provided. And why his letters are the cornerstone of Christianity.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying there.
You said they'll let you know when they're done.
Oh, that's what you meant by that. Bring me some when they're done. I'm shocked you didn't understand that.
No. Thank you. You're welcome.
So there's also a certain humor I found in looking at different Bible translation. It's that the chapter descriptions always different.
Oh yeah, those ones are fun.
Oh yeah, there's a passage in like in the, can't remember what it was in the NIV, but it was in Ecclesiastes as always, but
I don't know what it was.
there was this one thing in Icelandic where instead of using like the other translations you find commonly, it says the chapter description is blessed are the stillborn.
Blessed are the what?
Stillborn. Babies which are carried through the whole 9 months and then exit the womb dead.
I had never heard that before. And I know the concept, but I mean, like, I've never heard that phrase before.
Oh, it's yeah, it's the first chapter of Ecclesiastes 6.
Okay.
A man may live 100 years, have 100 children and live many years, no longer how long he lives. If he cannot enjoy his prosperity and will not receive a proper burial, I say a stillborn child is better off than he. It comes without meaning and departs in darkness, and in darkness its name is shrouded. Though it never saw the sun or knew anything, it has more rest than that man. Even if he lives 1,000 years twice as over, but fails to enjoy his prosperity, do not all go to the same place. But yeah, that, like, on top of that, it's written like blessed are the stillborn, and I'm like, should we have some other like line there? Like, I don't know. I can't come up with one, but it was just like, I think that's not the message the chapter is trying to give.
Blessed are those who have never had to suffer the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's good. It's good as a reference. Like if you go through a tragedy and you're looking through the Bible trying to help yourself cope with what just happened, that would be a good thing to find. But it's just like there's there's missing context.
Well, I have known men which I have had that, like, which have fit the description I read there perfect. So, yeah.
Hey guys, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here, but we can keep talking. That's fine. I was just letting everyone know I'm going to end it so I can get it posted.
Okay.
So you got the recording software to work